So we're really just stewarding the little funds we have, but I guess I'll read it out for Jackie. So the end of the year checking balance was $285.05 at the end of 2021. And then we also have a savings account that has $1,614.57 in December and earned a nominal amount of interest. So that's the funds we're sitting on. And at this point, we don't have any plans for them. And of course, if we do have expenditures, we bring them to the council for approval. So that's the report. Next, we have our FCC delegate report, and that would be Kathy.
Yes, thank you. We did meet in December, on December 15th, and covered a wide variety of items. We had reports from the mayor's office, the assembly, and the school board. We had a discussion with regard to noisy vehicles, their motorcycles or just loud cars with mufflers not functioning properly. And a draft resolution for councils to consider passing to request that enforcement of that sort of violation of current code. And so obviously we don't have it on our agenda for tonight. I'll discuss it with the board when we talk about our February agenda, and I'm not sure how many councils have actually passed it this last month or this month. I'll find out more at the delegate meeting coming up next week on January, what day is that? The 19th, I don't know. Yeah, the 19th. Also had information on the reapportionment of the assembly districts and an update on the homelessness task force from John Weddleton, and proposed changes to fee structures within Title 21, but FCC doesn't take any kind of action on that. So those were kind of the highlights of what we covered in the December FCC delegate meeting.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. And then just a reminder, a little bit later on, we do select or each council selects their delegate to the FCC to basically represent the council. Mostly the councils don't take action, but they do occasionally vote on things as a group. So so that's something that will be, I guess, I don't know if the word is designating or whatever the term is for who's going to be the delegate going forward. And then the next item, West Anchorage Candidates Forum. And I apologize, I had put Kathy's name on that, but I'll just give a brief update, which is that every year, sometimes multiple times a year, the West Side Councils, which is Turnagain, Spenard, North Star, and let's see, who am I forgetting? Sand Lake and Taco Campbell all get together and have a candidates forum. And so we usually do local candidates like assembly. We did one for the mayor last year. We've done ones for school board members. And then we also will do one for the legislative districts in our area. So we don't do statewide races like governor or, federal, obviously. But we are contemplating having that again. So we haven't talked to the other councils, but we wanted to bring it to the group to see if that's something, first of all, that we feel like is a good thing for TCC to do again this year. It would be sometime in February or March for the April 2022 race. And then also see if anybody's interested in volunteering for that, because we'll form our usual organizing committee. So I'll open it up, I guess, and just see if anybody has objection to that or is interested in that or wants to participate. Oh, Kathy, go ahead.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, I mean, that's something that Turnagain Community Council has actively participated in ever since the idea popped up more than 10 years ago. And I certainly would like to see Turnagain continue to be a primary sponsor of that event along with the West Anchorage Community Councils. We've gotten really good feedback and high marks for ones that we have held in the past. I think we've done it enough, so we do a pretty darn good job. And of course, I'm happy to participate in it as I always have. So thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? I saw Sarah, you had give a thumbs up, and also Pat Redmond, I saw that your hand was up and I forgot to recognize you before, so I apologize for that if you had a
Oh,
comment.
that was okay. I was just, you covered whatever I was going to ask.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I think so then it sounds like folks are okay, or at least not objecting to us approaching the other council. Oh, Sarah, you had your hand up as well.
Sorry, multitasking. I'm
No
gonna
problem.
put a message in the chat. I'm texting Jackie. She just needs an updated phone number. So if anybody has that, she's using the one on the website and it's bad. So.
Oh, okay.
So if you guys send that to me, I'll text it to her. But yeah, I absolutely love the forum, and it's kind of one of the things that got me interested in the council back 3 or 4 years ago. So I support it and would be happy to be on the committee.
Oh, great. Okay, and I'm seeing Sandy's giving thumbs up, and I'll keep an eye on. Looks like that's it. Okay, well, so let's, yeah, we'll go ahead with that. We'll reach out to the other councils and then we'll give a report back in the February meeting. And again, if you would like to volunteer, obviously, if you're not running for office, then, or you're working for a campaign, then we would be happy to have you participate. So then we'll move on, just really briefly to a couple status updates. So these are really things that that we aren't going to talk about today, but we just wanted to give a reminder, mostly for the February meeting. The first one is, if you guys remember, well, for the last few years, folks on Hillcrest Drive and Forest Park have had some safety issues, like people hitting mailboxes, people almost hitting children, like not great. And so they approached the council. There was a group of parents a couple of years ago, and now another couple who lives on Forest Park Drive had come and just was really looking for solutions, whether it's enforcement or what can be done long term. So we talked about it a little bit. We did reach out to them to see if they wanted to come back and give an update to us, but they weren't available this evening. So they're planning to come on the February to the February meeting. And then hopefully we can continue to focus on that, because I think there's some maybe some enforcement things that could be done, or longer term, some traffic calming or other issues. Pat, you have your hand up.
Yes, regarding Forest Park Drive, I was on Forest Park yesterday between 3 and 4, and there were 2 police cars parked in different places near where speeding or failure to stop at stop signs might be a problem. Just so you're aware, they are, at least then, they were taking some action, just kind of observing.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we intend to definitely follow up and see if there's anything else we can do. Sandy, you have your hand up as well. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Given that I live nearby, I walked by there one time and kind of looked the whole thing over, and they are on a turn. They're kind of at a bad spot on a turn, and I can see easily why people keep skidding, particularly in the winter, and running into their mailbox, and worse. The one concrete thing that I can think of suggesting is that if one goes along Forest Park in either direction, there are other places where there's a sign which essentially says there's a stop sign ahead. So it's before you can see a stop sign, it just alerts you there's a stop sign coming up. In their case, there is not such a sign. And so to me, that's a simple, concrete suggestion, is do what's been done on other parts of the street. It would be located on the north of their house before the turn. And it's already done, again, it's already done on other parts of the street. So there's perhaps other things to be done, but that to me seems like a real straightforward, real easy one to do. And hopefully it would help.
Okay. Thanks, Sandy. That's a good idea. So this is something that we'll have a little bit more discussion on next month, and maybe some updates. But in the meantime, we can start to reach out and suggest that. So let's have one more comment and then we'll move on. Toby Ventura, you want to speak?
Hi, I live on the corner of Hillcrest and Forest Park. And I had my mailbox knocked down a couple of years ago by a high school kid who was a hit and run. I have a huge mailbox. There's no way she couldn't have noticed. But the high schoolers do not stop, and people that are commuting, I don't know why they come up through Hillcrest and go down through Forest Park. I don't see that there's much of a time savings, but they don't stop when they come up to the Forest Park, the four-way stop sign. They don't stop there. They do a rolling stop. So maybe a speed bump just before the stop sign, that would be great. I'm not in favor of sidewalks. I don't want to lose any more of my yard. And then they also, I mean, people do fly through here. They fly down Hillcrest. I think they're going about 40 miles an hour before they come to a stop sign. So some sort of traffic calming would be really helpful. That's all.
Yeah, thanks. Oh yeah, thanks, Toby. And yeah, that was definitely the theme of, it was a couple years ago on Hillcrest Drive. Some folks were having issues like you were describing, and there was I think a traffic study done. We had asked the Muni to do one, but they had done it during the summer, so it wasn't really clear if you know, it didn't answer the question of you know, how much the school traffic was impacting that. But anyway, but yeah, that's something we'll definitely talk about next month, and hopefully have more information. So the next item then, just as a reminder really for next month, is the HLB annual work plan. And Kathy, maybe you're about to speak to that, just really briefly. Oh, and you're on mute.
The public hearing on the 2022 annual work program, and I'm not sure if they're going to be doing a 5-year management plan like they typically do, since their staffing is so low, their HLB office, but for sure, at least 2022 work program. The hearing for comments in front of the Heritage Bank Advisory Commission is this month, February 15th, I believe. And so this, I printed 37 pages out today, took a real quick look at it. No graphics this time. They don't have maps or any kind of graphics. It's just text, but it looks similar to previous plans. And I typically take the lead to review it and see if anything jumps out at us, since there are HLB parcels west of the airport that are within Turnagain, or we're interested because they're adjacent to Turnagain out there by the coastal trail. So I'll go ahead and take a look at that. The land use committee can do that potentially, you know, as a collaboration, and then we'll come to our February 3rd meeting for some kind of motion or resolution with regard to if we have any amendments, or actually maybe a comment letter, which is what we typically do. If we have any amendments or issues, or just express our support for the draft. And so we'll just work on that between now and the 3rd.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So that's kind of a preview of some of the items that we'll talk about next month. So that is the board report for now. So let's move on to legislative report. And I see we have at least 2 of our senators and staff from offices. So if you'd like to speak, and also before we start, I'll just say Representative Clayman also expressed his regret for not being here. He wanted to let you know that he thanked everybody for coming to his constituent event last night, and is heading to Juneau tomorrow, but celebrating his, I think it was 30th or 32nd anniversary tonight. So so he sends his regards to the council. So from there, I don't know if Senator Gray Jackson or Senator Costello wants to start, but go ahead.
Senator Costello, since this is your community council, why don't you go first, and then I'll go after you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Elvie. It's good to see you on the Zoom, and just wanted to congratulate Anna for your taking on the presidency of the Turnagain Community Council, and also thanking Kathy for your service to the community and continuing to serve as the vice president of the council. Really appreciate the opportunity. So I I'm here in Juneau. I came here on the ferry, the Cross Gulf Ferry, which is a little earlier this year. So I'm getting my office set up, and we are going to be starting the session on Tuesday, the 18th, so next week. I attended an Alaska Commission on Post-Secondary Education committee meeting. I'm a member of that, of the commission, and we voted to extend authorization to many of, or several of the career and technical educational schools that provide opportunities for students to gain experience and also certifications in various different professions. Some of them including the high need professions like nursing assistants and things like that, welding at Charter College, many of the different colleges around town in Alaska who provide those opportunities for kids. So I sit on that commission, and I had that meeting just yesterday. In addition, I also wanted to share that I will be chairing again the Senate Committee on Labor and Commerce, which LB Gray Jackson is a member. And we are going to be starting up right away after the first day on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we'll have our first hearing. And then I wanted to also mention that Representative Clayman has a bill, and perhaps his staff can talk about it, but we will be hearing that bill on the first Monday after session starts. So I'm really excited to hear his bill, been talking to him about that, and I'm glad we'll be moving forward on that. This is the second year of a 2-year legislative session. So bills that have been in the process already, they'll be moving forward. My hope is that we pass a budget and also pass many of the components of a fiscal plan. That those bills are sitting in Senate Finance right now. They're still what they call alive from the last session. And so I'm very hopeful that we can do that. I always welcome your input, emails, phone calls. Probably the best way to reach me via phone is the local Anchorage number, which is 269-0117. And then that phone is forwarded to my Juneau office, where I will be, in order to receive those. So I also wanted to mention that I recently, before heading to Juneau here, I attended a ride along with the Anchorage Police Department, and it was really fascinating to me. I was happy to participate in that. It was an evening ride along with Officer Tom Endress. And usually what happens on a police, shift is they, deal with traffic violations, speeding, that type of thing. They're called to different 911 calls. But on this night, what we did was we worked with an undercover agent, and we parked nearby a trailer court, and the undercover agent knew of a drug house. And when cars would leave that site, they would contact the officer that I was with, and then we would go out and try to stop the individual with a valid, a legitimate traffic violation. And it was really great to see the Anchorage Police Department and how collaborative they are with the undercover agents, and also how dedicated they are. And I actually posted about that on my Facebook page. If you're not following that, I encourage you to do that. I was really impressed with their work, and just want to do a shout out to the Anchorage Police Department for the work that they do for our community. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Oh, and I did actually pre-file a bill. I sit on a board called Life Alaska that deals with organ donations. And one of the things I learned is that if you renew your driver's license online, you're not able to select a donor, an organ donation. You can only do that if you renew your license in person. So my bill will allow that to be a possibility. And I also toured the blood bank of Alaska before I came down to Juneau, and just really impressed by all of the donations that Alaskans give. There were people there while I was visiting who were donating their blood. And so I really appreciate that. And anyway, that's what I've been up to. And if anyone has any questions, be happy to answer those.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it looks like Dave and Terry, or Dave or Terry, has a question. Go ahead.
Okay.
Actually, not really so much of a question, just to reiterate on your ride along with APD. I strongly suggest everybody to do that if they are possible, because you will see a total different side of what APD officers go through. And on that type of menu, they have a Citizens Academy, and it is available to sign up for the Citizens Academy. And you can, it's one night a week, and you go and see in depth what each division, what APD does, and you get to ride along with that. So if you are interested, I would strongly suggest doing the Citizens Academy. You'll learn a whole lot about the daily life of an officer. And so just to reiterate that if you are interested, I would strongly suggest that.
Okay, thanks, Dave. That's a good opportunity. And Senator Gray Jackson, you're up next.
Thank you. It's really great to see everybody. But before I give my report, I want to give a shout out to our police officers and staff, because they do an amazing job. And when I served on Anchorage Assembly, I did many ride-alongs, and that's when I decided that I never want to be a police officer ever. But my heart goes out to them for keeping our citizens safe. They do an amazing job. Okay, Happy New Year, everybody. I'm looking forward to going to Juneau next Monday and working as hard as I always do on behalf of all of you and my other 8 community councils. And as I mentioned, I think I mentioned this at the last community council meeting, that I'm going to introduce 2 new bills. Actually, I'm going to be pre-filed. And the first one is a caretaker bill that'll increase wages and restore hours and reduce barriers to access and provide care. And then the next one is a sex education bill that would require age-appropriate sex education to be taught in schools. And then a third, a companion bill to Representative Josephson's House HB 17 that would make it illegal to discriminate against anybody based on sexual orientation and gender identity or expression. And so with those new bills, you may recall the bills that I introduced last year. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 public safety policy change bills, also known as police reform. Several of them have already been heard in the first committee, and I'm looking forward to moving into another committee to be heard. And I've worked with stakeholders even before I introduced these bills. In addition, I've had several meetings over the last few months with the Alaska Police of Chiefs organization, whatever it's called, the Police Chief Organization. But anyway, I've had 2 meetings with them, and they were really good meetings. And then I also introduced last session Senate Bill 5 to make Juneteenth a paid state holiday like it is at the federal level. And I was really happy and honored that Senate Bill 47, Vehicle Registration Persons with Disabilities, that passed. And Senate Bill 80 is a companion bill to Representative Clayman's Senate Bill, House Bill 60, that would require mental health education and schools, which it's always been needed, but with the situation with COVID and our children, it's really needed. And both of our bills have been heard in 2 committees, and they're almost they're at the finish line, because the last committee is finance, and that's where they are right now. I want to talk a little bit about some highlights of Governor Dunleavy's budget. The FY 2022 supplemental budget, one highlight is that he proposes 795.6 million supplemental PFD, which would bring the total to 1.5 billion. And it's basically the 50-50 proposal that he had presented to us during the last session. And then some, the FY23 budget highlights, the total UGF spending is 4.6 billion, which doesn't include the PFD, and utilizes 375.4 million of ARPA revenue. It pays out a 50-50 PFD that is going to cost $1.68 billion, and it's projected to be $2,564 for each of us. The ERA, there's no ERA overdraws or CBR overdraws, and the budget doesn't include a reverse sweep. And some other highlights, the agency operations have increased by 13.8 million. 3 major reductions without service changes totaling 123.6 million. K through 12 student count change, it's a reduction of 18.8 million. Medicaid increase of 45.5 million. And there are multiple Department of Public Safety increases in state troopers, VPSOs, and aircraft, 16 million. University of Alaska, 4.1 million. Central Services rate adjustments, 4.1 million. Department of Correction increases for Highland Mountain and other programs, 4.1 million. Wildlife fire protection increases 3.8 million. And as everybody knows by now, the Department of Health and Social Services is once again proposing to split the two departments. Actually, it's the governor's executive order. And then school debt reimbursement and REA fund deposits is going to be funded at 100%. Retirement payments are down by 111.6 million because of investment in performance. Community assistance deposit is funded at $30 million. And the capital budget, the governor is proposing a $310.1 million proposed general obligation bond package. And that's going to be interesting. I support bonds, I really do, but it's going to be interesting to see how that goes over with all of my colleagues, especially considering all the infrastructure money that we're going to be getting in our community over 5 years. And with that said, if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I'm really glad that we still have Zoom, because we'll be able to comfortably give our reports while we're in Juneau. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to give my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, yeah, thanks, senators. And yeah, we were thinking the same thing, that it does make it easier on Zoom, even though it's not easier in other ways. So Kathy, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Anna, and thank you, Alvi. You've got the governor is reviving his proposal to split the Alaska Department of Health and Social Services into two departments. Can you just briefly elaborate on the rationale for that from his perspective, and if you support that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your question.
Sorry, if you could just kind of briefly address the governor's proposal to split the Department of Health and Social Services into two departments. And,
well, yes, yes.
And why he's doing it from his perspective, and if you support that.
Okay, well, for one thing, Kathy, thank you for your question, but I really can't speak for the governor. I don't know what the total reason is for the reason why he's doing it, but I do know, based on the fact that it was before us last year, the Health and Social Services Department is one of the biggest departments. It is the biggest department in the state, and the biggest budget also. And they feel that it will be more effective if it was divided into two departments. And I think in my notes you'll be able to see what the two departments will be called. I had an issue with it last session because there were a lot of stakeholders who sent emails to us and told us that they weren't advised of this, and they had a lot of concerns. And from what I'm hearing now, Commissioner Crum has addressed all those issues. You know, I'm not going to say, I don't know if he has or not, but from what he has said, he's addressed all those issues. But, you know, we'll see what happens when it's before us during the next session.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, Jonathan, I see you have a question. Jonathan Galen.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Thank you, Anna. Senator, I wanted to ask, I didn't hear much about public safety there. Specifically, how are we going to increase the number of Alaska State Troopers statewide? Is that, you know, that should be addressed this year specifically, especially out in the villages and the remote areas. And if any of, I don't know if Mia's still on, but I think that's pretty important to address that very specifically. So thank you for your comment in advance.
Thank you. I agree with you. It is really important, and it's a $60 million increase, and I'll be interested in seeing how that's truly going to be broken down when we're in session.
Are there any bills relative to real public safety, specifically law enforcement and the like?
I'm not aware of any.
Maybe one should be brought up, drafted. Thank you.
Send me an email and give me your suggestions. I would love to hear what suggestions you have in that regard. That would be great.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. So let's take one more question. And it looks like Dan, you have a question, Dan Gleason.
Hi, Dan.
Oh, maybe just unmute. Okay. Well,
Sorry about that.
oh, go ahead.
Hi,
I would
Dan.
like to, hi, Elvia. I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to ask Mia the same question about the splitting of the departments and what her thoughts are and whether she would support that same issue.
I think I addressed it, but I'll tell you again, last year, we had the same issue before us, and I had concerns because we got a lot of emails from stakeholders who felt that they didn't have enough information and they didn't think it was a good idea. And the one thing that I didn't mention in my comments earlier was we got an email from the senior center, and I think it's in Juneau, and there were some concerns there. And I just look forward to the opportunity to hear more this session and to confirm that Commissioner Crum has indeed had fruitful conversations with stakeholders.
Yeah, thanks, Senator. And Senator Costello, I think Dan was also asking your view on it.
Yeah, so
Right.
thank you, Dan, for the question. I had a meeting with Commissioner Crum about the issue about creating the two departments. And, I'm not necessarily in favor of growing a government and creating a new department. However, I do think that there might be some reasons that would lead me to support such a move. I will be looking forward this, session to hear more about that proposal. So my mind isn't made up yet, but if they can show us that it will help, make the department more efficient by making it smaller. I mean, one of the concerns that I have is it's such a massive bureaucracy. And I think that the department does so many things that there may be a case for splitting it up. I'm not necessarily convinced that that's the right thing to do yet, but I'm definitely going to keep an open mind and we'll be, listening to the rationale for that. One of the things that we face in Juneau and with the executive branch is it seems that each of the departments are siloed and the communication is not as fluid as you would like. For example, the Department of Education and the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, I think they should be working, hand in hand for preparing people for jobs and then the job market. But, so I kind of look more towards combining departments and splitting them up. But I'll keep an open mind and hopefully, they can make a good case for that.
Has there been any legislation introduced to support this breakup? I haven't seen any. And isn't that required by law if there's a change in the executive branch that the legislature has to weigh in on it with some type of bill or some type of law?
I do believe the legislature will have to weigh in on it. I personally have not seen any legislation, but I haven't looked through all the bills. I imagine it would be the governor would be introducing, there'd be a bill introduced on his behalf.
Have you seen anything?
No, I haven't, but, just like at the local level, when the mayor decides that he wants to change departments or reorganize, the assembly has to approve it through an ordinance. And so I'm hopeful that there'll be a similar process for what the governor would like to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. So let's keep moving. And I see there's Katie from Senator Costello's office put some information about the public safety funding. So let's move on, but just a reminder to folks that you should always feel free to reach out to your elected representatives and senators, either with ideas, questions, comments, concerns, comments on bills. And their offices are very willing to hear. So let's move on. And before we do the assembly report, I just want to say we do have mayor's report on the list. And so this is an area where I dropped the ball because we had gotten contacted in December about having somebody from the mayor's office come and speak. And then between me and Kathy, we just didn't make that happen for this month. So it didn't feel right to reach out to them the morning of the meeting and ask. So that is something that we're going to have on the meeting as a standing item if somebody's available, and then maybe February we'll have somebody. So with that, I'll move on to assembly report, then we'll do school board report and airport. So I see we have both Cameron and Austin on here. So whoever wants to start.
Cameron, do you still want me to do it, or do you want to, yeah, okay.
I think you got it. So, and if there's anything I want to add, I can just tag it on at the end.
Sounds great. It's actually been a long time since we've been here together. I looked back and it was December 2nd. So that was before we finalized the operating budget, and a lot of things have happened since then. I think it was December 10th. Maybe Cameron remembers, but anyway, it probably doesn't matter that we did pass operating budget for calendar year 2022. You may have read that the mayor attempted to make a bunch of changes compared to this year's budget. One of the main things that we discussed and ended up reverting was a reduction and elimination of the mobile crisis team, which has been a program that many assembly members have been enthusiastic about. The public, we've gotten a lot of good feedback. It takes pressure off of APD because what the program is we have folks, counselors, and APD officers AFD officers working together in the fire department. And Cameron, I know, just recently toured it, so he probably has a lot to add if folks have questions. But going out to meet people where they are when they're having a mental health crisis or mental health incident where they need assistance. We've seen that having APD officers do that, which is what the mayor proposed instead, is not effective. It scares people. People are not as open to receiving help. And so anyway, and the mayor had proposed that we cut that in half and move it to APD. We restored the funding and kept it in AFD. Some other things that he had cut, funding for early education, funding for prevention of domestic violence. We restored those funding amounts, as well as there were many other things involved in the budget, but that's just a summary of some of the stuff that was really important, I know, to both me and to Cameron. Now we're working on bonds and trying to get everything set up for the April election. We, in the fall, or November, December time, had included a bunch of parks on the bond that the mayor had not included in his proposed budget. And he's removed them again. So now we're working on adding those back. And Cameron and I have also been working with Anna and with Lindsay from the Spenard Community Council to discuss West Anchorage priorities for both the ARDSA bond, which is the road bond, and the parks bond. And Cameron and I are hoping, we've brought an S version, which is we took the mayor's package and then worked with the mayor's office to get a couple other things added as an alternative that was a little bit bigger of a bond that would include some public safety projects like the Lois Drive and 32nd upgrade, which has been ongoing for a little bit. The design, we want to be able to finish that design, acquire a right of way, make sure that area is a little safer, has sidewalks for kids who are walking to Aquarian, and of course for the neighborhood around as well. So we're working on that now. We have a work session tomorrow, so we'll be discussing the bonds there. There's a public hearing on the 19th. We've scheduled a special meeting to hear from everyone on that and everything else that's maybe going forward on the ballot, and then we'll take a vote on the 25th. Let's see, reapportionment. So just like the state process, every 10 years after the census comes back, at the municipal level, we reevaluate our assembly districts and then divide them up, make sure we, if we have too many folks in one district, for instance, a lot of people have moved. I think Eagle River is a little bigger, has a higher population now. So we sort of even them out. And of course, this time we have Proposition 12, which added a second member to the downtown district. So all the districts are going to have to shrink a little bit because that district's going to get a little bigger. So we've been working on the reapportionment process. We hired a contractor. That contractor produced independent maps that the committee, I'm on the committee, we didn't have really anything to do with those. They just looked at the math, looked at the districts, and came up with, I think, 6, maybe 5 different ideas with the new census data of how we could do assembly districts. We're also taking feedback from the public, and actually third parties can submit maps if they would like to be considered. Let me look at the deadline for that. Deadline is January 20th. And when I finish the update, I'll put in the chat to a link to where you can find all this reapportionment information as well as the draft maps. Then we'll be having a couple town halls to hear from the public on the draft maps, and that will be January 26th and January 27th. One will be in person at the LUSAC where we usually meet, and then one will be via Teams because we wanted to make sure that there was an option for folks who were comfortable doing one or the other. And after that, we'll at the committee level take all the public comment we've received and the various maps we have, and then put forward one map that we believe best reflects, is fair and best reflects the feedback we've received. And that should happen. We should end up voting, I think, by March 1st is the plan. Let's see. So I think you all probably know and have read in the paper that John Weddleton, Chris Constant, and Meg Zalatel from the assembly, those 3 joined together to be able to work with the mayor's office on a facilitated process to talk about our next steps with regard to homelessness. This was something that Meg Zalatel really pushed, and I'm thankful for her leadership because she got everyone in the same room to start actually having conversations. And it's only 3 assembly members so that they could do it in a small group and really be vulnerable with each other and go back and forth with ideas. And I think they've had a lot of success that's led to a plan that's much like, Ethan Berkowitz's plan a couple years ago, which was to purchase a variety of buildings and have scattered sites for different homelessness services throughout the city. I came out when I was acting mayor with a similar plan last May. And, at first the mayor wanted to locate all of the homelessness services at Tudor and Elmore at a really big facility. And through the facilitated process, the assembly has been able to educate him and his team a little more about homelessness services and the reasons for scattering sites and making them smaller because there's a lower impact on the communities around it. And it's been a really, I think, good experience, and everyone is on board and supports those sites. Includes purchasing the Sockeye and the Barrett, which is the closest one to Turnagain on Wisconsin. And where is that? Wisconsin and Spenard. Yeah.
Yep.
You guys probably know the Barrett. And so
Right behind the gas station there.
Yep. Currently fenced off, but it will be nice to have that as a nicer operational building. It will be permanent supportive housing. So folks who can live on their own, but maybe need a little help to do that. And we've been lucky to have the support and partnership of organizations like Rasmussen and Widener Apartment Homes, and also Providence. And I think that's it for now. Cameron, did you want to add anything?
No, I think those were the main topics that I would have gone over as well. So, but if there are questions, we're happy to answer them.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Austin and Cameron. And so we'll take just a couple of questions because I know we're running a little bit behind. But I know you guys are always really responsive to email, so I appreciate that. So I see 3 hands, so we'll go with that. So first, Kathy, Pat, and then Sarah.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. Just curious on like the Sockeye and the Barrett. Have you delved into the mechanics of how you pick contractors or managers, or what the appropriate word is, to operate these facilities, and how that process will play out
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you want to say anything, Cameron, or you want me to take a
Well,
stab at
I
it?
would say that just to clarify, the sockeye, the intention there is for the medically fragile, and so that is specifically to provide services there that we believe we can bill for many of those services. So that's a specific type of contractor and type of organization that can help to run that. And then the Barrett's intention is to be transitional housing, but also sort of workforce housing. So it's intended to be a place where people who are working can be in a stable environment and can contribute to the cost. And there's also some opportunity for us to get funding there as well. So very different services. What I know now is that we're still in the process of securing those sites and finalizing those. But I do not know about the process so far in terms of developing an RFP and beginning to identify organizations that can come in and provide those services. But that's typically how we would do it, is once it's secured, we would develop a request for proposals and then start to solicit organizations that could come in and provide the services that are not necessary there, both the facility in terms of maintaining the facility and the program services that would be offered there. But I'm not aware of any movement on that front yet.
And I'll just add that one of the pros of having a small group work with the mayor's team and work with our philanthropic partners is that they can be really nimble, and they meet all the time. Trying to pull together the whole assembly with that group would obviously be more difficult. But one of the disadvantages is that we're not as involved in the process as those three are. Cameron and I just aren't. And so I know he and I were both a little disappointed when we learned about the Barrett, because we learned about it at the same time the public did. And that didn't feel good because we weren't able to answer the public's questions. And so he and I have both asked, on the record a couple of times, can we get more information? Can we get more updates? And we have been, and it's been really great. And John Weddleton actually was at Spenard Community Council last week giving a detailed update, and I'm sure I'd be happy to come here and do that as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's something we can consider for a future meeting. Pat, and then Sarah.
Okay, I had a question regarding the putting the clerk's office, or the municipal clerk on the ballot. The next hearing on it, or the next is set for public hearing August 23rd. Between now and then, can we talk to you, or can we discuss this? Because that is a major change, a very major change. And having been involved with the original charter, there were reasons why it is placed where it is. Currently, for people who aren't aware, the municipal clerk works for the assembly and is appointed by the assembly. And it's a very nonpartisan position. So I just wondering, between now and August, how much we can discuss this.
Thank you. And Austin, I'll start, and then if you have anything to add. Yeah, so we moved to introduce and to set the public hearing that far out for exactly the reason that you're bringing up, that we need time to really to bring people who have a lot more experience in this to talk about what other states do, to really consider this before we bring it out and put it on a ballot. And so it was just a rush process that absolutely, but between now and August, that's our intention, is to set some dates to do, for instance, a work session, and to bring folks in and to have more of a conversation to really determine whether this is a move that we want to make or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And I know, Sarah, you mentioned that your questions have been answered, and I put in the chat that we'll definitely, the board will talk about maybe either for our next meeting or the March meeting, if we can have an update. And that's a great suggestion to have John Weddleton come. So it looks like there's no other questions, and I know we are running a little bit behind, so we'll pick up time later, but thank you again for Assembly folks for joining. And I think we'll move on to the school board report briefly, and then we'll get to airport report.
Very good. Thank you. And Happy New Year to everybody. I did put a copy of my report in the chat. because there are active links in it, and you can just click on the links of anything that I'm talking about that you might want to know more about. So the superintendent issued her mid-month COVID update today, and the mask mandate, our entire mitigation plan stays in place, including the mask mandate. We are in the, we began our superintendent search last month. And there's a link there that will take you to our superintendent search page. And on that page, you will see a survey and you will see a series of town hall engagements that are open to the public. And the purpose for the survey and for the town halls is so that we can get as much information regarding the attributes and characteristics, what's important to you to see in the next superintendent. And so our goal, the board's goal, is to screen all of our applicants. We are doing a national search. We have retained the services of a search consultant who is helping us to engage with our employees internally, as well as engage with the community. So please share the survey link, fill it out yourself. It means a lot to us to get as much information as possible. And our next meeting will be on the 18th, which is next week. And we are going into a retreat over the weekend to start our budget and to do some board training. The budget is the next big piece that we have to get together. I will be bringing back the pass our bond on Tuesday, or was it Monday? Tuesday. And so we will be doing I'll be doing a brief bond presentation so you know what's in the bond, the ASD bond that the assembly passed on Tuesday. Because there are 2 board seats coming up and we are getting ready to, candidates are deciding whether or not they're running or they already know that they're running. We are offering a Board Leadership Academy, which is a series of webinars. And there's a link if you're interested in just learning whether you're running or not, just learning about what the roles and responsibilities of the school board are. Please take a look at, we had one tonight. The first one was tonight. We have another one on the 27th, one for March, and 2 in March. And those are to be determined because individuals who are running will not be providing the actual training. So we are hoping that would be a benefit to the community as well as candidates. Let's see, we spoke, I already spoke about the bond proposal. Please, if you would like to sign up to testify in writing or telephonically or in person, that is done now electronically. And so you may do, when you sign up, you can sign up to do either in person, telephonically, or written. And we also stream our meetings really live. We stream our meetings so that you can, excuse me, out, not now. I'll be right back. Sorry. He wants to know if I'm hungry. Yeah. Progress monitoring. We are continuing our goals and guardrail monitoring. And this week we will be doing a reading. So if you can't attend in person, please listen because those conversations are very, very insightful. We want to know where our kids are, what they know, what they're able to do. And we are making a point of monitoring our goals very, very carefully. Our COVID website continues to be up to date. We are adding some more features to it. We are having some issues with staffing and having enough subs. All of our central office, anybody in the central office with the certificate is out subbing, including the superintendent. Personally, I will be over at Willowa tomorrow for helping out at that school. So we are all trying to keep our kids and staff safe. We are trying to make sure that we keep it in kids learning in person. And with that, I will, I feel like I'm missing something, but I can answer questions. But please do look at the report that's in the chat. I put it in rather early. I can put it in again because sometimes if you weren't in the room when I put it in there, you won't see it. But I'm happy to do that. So you have the links to go to everything that I've talked about.
Yeah, thanks, Margot. That'd be helpful. And I did download a copy, so we'll make sure that that gets on the website. So does anybody have questions for Margot before we move on? Oh, Jonathan, I see one.
Jonathan? I think you're on mute, Jonathan. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
Sorry. Just
No
a
problem.
comment. It looks like your young fellow there is going to be a really good candidate for the Cordon Bleu cooking school. So.
Oh, okay. You know, he loves to bake.
I'd
but he
encourage that. We need more good chefs. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for coming. And thanks for the update. So let's move on to airport report. So we have John Johansson, and John, if you want to share anything, just let me know. But you don't.
Okay. Yeah, I probably should learn to do as others have done to post stuff on the chat, but maybe I'll figure that out for next time. But our airport update is available on our website, and I think you guys have a copy of it on your website. It's fairly brief. I'll just go through it quickly. Well, thank you, Anna, whoever did that. We're still trying to keep all the travelers safe that come through the airport. So we're focused on cleaning and other things to ensure a safe environment. We're still having vaccines available at the airport. It's actually DHSS that's doing it, and they have a contractor that is doing that for them. And the vaccines are available to anyone 12 and older. And the little clinic is to the left of the B concourse ticketing area where Delta and United ticketing is. On the far left of that, there used to be a little concessionaire there called Grizzly Pizza. Well, the vaccines are there. The COVID-19 testing has moved into the airside as I reported last month. So you have to get through security, and it's as you're heading down towards C concourse, it's on your left just before you get to Starbucks. However, they're going to be going away, I believe, at the end of this month. They're pulling out of the airport. And that's also a DHSS thing. Capstone Clinic's running that too. It's 2 years since we last did an airport community outreach plan update. This is a plan that we developed with the airport master plan way back 4 or 5 years ago. And we updated every 2 years as deemed appropriate. So we're soliciting input from the community, and there is a link on this update to where you can find the plan. So if you have any comments that you would like us to incorporate, please share them with us by the 18th of March. Cell phone parking lot, we're still having a lot of issues with people coming to the airport early, parking alongside the roadside toward the terminal, or parking at the curb in front of the terminal bag claims and causing a lot of congestion. So please use the cell phone parking lot and only go to get your loved ones when they have their bags and are at the curb ready to be picked up. Lakewood Seaplane Base, we got a lot of ice there now, so it's operating as a ski plane base. And please keep your family and pets off of there so we don't have any incursions between aircraft and people or dogs. So that kind of covers, well, that doesn't cover it. I have a back page. People mover bus, I think I mentioned last time, we're no longer Our People Mover is no longer serving the north terminal due to a lack of ridership there, so it's just on the south terminal. And we are going to have an airport job fair on January 29th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. In the north terminal. And in addition to the airport, the state portion of the airport, other employers, airlines, tourism people will be having booths there at that job fair. So if you don't know anyone looking for work, please send them our way on the 29th. I don't really have anything to update on the cargo developments or the proposed leases. The cargo developments at the big airport or the proposed leases at the little airport. It just, with the holidays and the storms and New Year's, there just hasn't been much to talk about there coming out of either the tenants or our folks that will eventually be working on the design of that replacement parking on the east side of the Lakewood Strip. And then I guess to answer the question that came up early in the meeting about liquor license application at the airport. I don't know anything about it, but Megan Peters, our communications person, is on the call here. So I'll ask her if she knows anything about that or has anything else to add that I spoke about. Megan?
Hi, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I do not have an answer about the liquor license. If you guys could send me an email at megan.peters@alaska.gov, megan.peters@alaska.gov. I will track down an answer for you guys and get back to you on it. I'm just not familiar with that. As for the question in the chat regarding the vaccines and the testing, it is the testing that's going to be ending. I have not received any information about vaccinations ending. I will also look into that and respond directly to the president of the TCC for you. Does anyone else have any questions that I could potentially help with or research?
Yeah, I see Jonathan's got his hand raised, and then I'm gonna limit questions to just two tonight because we do have to move on. But go ahead, Jonathan, briefly.
Thank you, Anna. Megan, that license is a pretty basic license. That is going to be a sake producer. They're apparently not going to have any type of retail outlet. They're going to produce sake. And so that'll be a nice addition to Anchorage. But it's pretty much going to be a non-event because it's a production facility. As I understand it now, their advertising is required by Title IV, Alaska statutes on alcohol beverage. So that is what is going in that location for all
Okay.
that's interested.
Please do send me an email. I do not deal with leasing on a regular basis, but it is something I can most definitely inquire about, and I can come back to you guys and at least let you know if it's still in the process or if it's been denied or granted. Or I'm still learning this stuff, but I'm more than happy to track it down. And any background you can provide me before I ask questions would be very helpful. I don't know what I don't know, so. I eventually be up to speed and be able to answer immediately to you guys when we have these meetings. I'm just not there yet. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no problem. And
You can go to the ABC. You can go to the ABC board. You can call the ABC board, and they will tell you everything that you need to know about pending licenses and requirements. So that's an easy resource.
I know they're executive director, so I'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And we do have information, so we can forward what we have from the state. I think it's from the state. So yeah.
Answer.
Okay, thank you. So Kathy, just if you can be really brief, and then we need to move on. Oh, and you need to be on mute. or off mute.
Liquor license. It's, the assembly will be up for approval next month. And so I think the board will discuss, inviting the applicant to our February 3rd meeting. It does seem like a non-aeronautical use. And so, we get that thrown at our council a lot, that airport property is for airport functions primarily. So maybe by February 3rd, the airport could be prepared to briefly address why something like this, which is highly non-aeronautical, is being allowed to lease out. But we don't have time tonight to discuss that. So I just thought I'd throw that in. Thank you.
Very super quick response. To my knowledge, the primary function is for aeronautical. It doesn't preclude businesses that are not. However, if a business comes in that is specific to aeronautical and there is one that is not, that would take precedence. But again, I will look into it, and I am very happy to do that for you guys and provide you information as I can.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And so we'll move on. But just to note also, part of the airport communication plan is that you guys attend our meetings. So we always appreciate when you're available and that you guys are continuing your part of the agreement. So thank you. And then the next item that we do have is airport related. So you guys are welcome to stay on, but we're not expecting a presentation or anything as far as I know. Just that there is a lease extension proposed at the airport for the Beluga monitoring station. And I wonder if maybe Kathy, you could briefly speak to this item because it's also something that you wanted to propose action on.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, and then we can briefly discuss it. We did receive notice about this, so I move that Turnigan Community Council support the extension through December 31st, 2022 of the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities Land Use Permit ADA-32342 at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, Airport Park to the municipality of Anchorage / Port of Alaska for a beluga whale monitoring station located northwest of the intersection of Point Warrenzoff Drive and Postmark Drive. And that's just a very formal way to.
This is Pat. I'll second it.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, so let's have discussion. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, so briefly, we got notice of this. It's if you drive out past Postmark Drive and look to your right, there's been a beluga whale monitoring station there for at least a year, maybe longer. John, you probably in on that. And this is just a formal lease extension request because work is going to continue out at the Alaska port. And they monitor whales to ensure that if whales are present, then they stop whatever functions that may compromise the whales in terms of their presence in the area. So I encourage support for this motion, and it really doesn't need a lot of discussion. So thank you, Anna.
Okay. Yeah, so are there any other comments on this? Otherwise I'll entertain a motion, calling the question too. Okay, well, I don't hear or see any other comments. So why don't we go ahead and vote? So all in favor, oh, sorry, Community Council, you have your hand raised?
Sorry, I couldn't change my name. I'm Dan Gleason. I'm voting yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so let's go ahead and vote. So if everyone can use the raised hand function. And then Jackie, I know you're on the phone, so if you'd like to unmute, you're free to do so, or we can unmute you. We'll see if I can do that. Oops. I guess I should vote as well. Right. So I think I see 17, and then Steve, are you raising your hand, Steve Montu? Okay, so that's 18. And then Jackie, I don't know if you were able to unmute. Oh, it looks like we have 19. Jackie, are you there? Oh, I see you're unmuted. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on. We can update the vote with Jackie's vote if we need to. So it looks like that's 19 in favor. And then if folks can lower your hands, and anybody who's opposed to approval of this, please raise your hand. So I see 3 opposed, but I want to check. Okay, wait. Maybe 1 opposed. Pam, are you intending to vote no, or does your hand just stay up?
I believe she had voted yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did vote yes. I just can't get the hand down.
Oh, no worries. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, well then, so I'm not seeing any opposition. So it looks like that would pass from 19 votes yes, 0 votes no. So we'll go ahead and I believe send a brief comment letter just documenting that. So thank you, everybody. And just to say also, we're still figuring out the Zoom stuff, but we do intend to talk as a board about what's the most efficient way to vote on things, especially if it's using a poll or something that we can use in the meeting that's, transparent, but quicker. So we're still working on that one. And luckily we don't have a lot of people today. So let's go back to the agenda. So the next item is just a brief action. We periodically select our Federation of Community Councils delegate. So that is, again, the Federation is all 38 councils. In theory, somebody from each council goes every month to those meetings. And then mostly it's updates from the councils, it's information sharing, it's things that individual delegates bring back to their own councils. And then once in a while they take action on, for example, I think they approve the budget. They kind of act as the board for the Federation itself, who has a couple staff and are a nonprofit. So Kathy Gleason has been our delegate for a long time. And I know often it's a board member, it can be somebody else. So I think at this point we can entertain nominations for that delegate, and then we'll be, Kathy, remind me, I think we vote, don't we?
Yes, we do need to vote for both a delegate and an alternate.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The alternate as well. So we'll open it up for nominations. And I think I can do this. I'm gonna nominate myself for the FCC delegate. So I was not smart enough to coordinate ahead of time and have somebody else do it.
I would like to continue to be delegate as well, but I certainly understand that it's a good thing for the president to be actively involved on the delegate group. And so, if you want Anna there, then I would love to be the alternate.
And I'll nominate Kathy to be the alternate. So are there any other?
I'll second the nomination for Kathy to be alternate.
Okay, and are there any other nominations either for delegate or alternate?
Do we need to have someone second you as the delegate, Anna? Or did someone else already do that?
I don't think anybody did, but that's probably
Okay.
a good idea.
I'll go ahead and second that as you for you as the delegate.
Okay, yeah, thank you for paying attention to the detail.
And this is Carolyn. I'll second Kathy as alternate.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. I think Pat had done that already. But yeah, now we're covered. Okay, well, since we have an unopposed slate, unless folks want to do a hand count again, I think, or I don't know if we need to, Pat.
I'll move it unanimous vote for the slate.
Second, John Isaacs.
Okay, thank you. And so is there any objection to an unanimous approval of the slate? Okay. Well, thanks everyone for your confidence in Kathy and my ability to represent us to the FCC. And again, those meetings are open to the public. So so only one person from a council can act as the delegate in that situation, but certainly folks can attend, including just, regular members of the public. There's always good updates. And I believe those are on Zoom as well and recorded. Okay, so let's move on to our next item. And this is our last action item of the day, unless somebody brings another motion. And that is a proposed resolution regarding the 2022 bond projects. And so, so first, I think the resolution draft, I'll put it up on the screen. It was sent out with the meeting notice. And I know folks may not have had a chance to read it, but first let's get a, if somebody wants to make a motion and a second to introduce, and then we can discuss.
And this is John. I move to introduce the Community Council Resolution 2022X for the purposes of discussion.
This is Pat. I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion in a second. And I apologize, I need to get better at my Robert's Rules training. So I think I was supposed to read this whole thing, but we'll keep it informal. So this resolution.
Waive reading.
Oh, thank you, Dan. So this resolution is essentially recommending inclusion of various West Anchorage projects on the 2022 capital improvement bond. And so the language is drafted in a way to not say that we support these projects, because as a community council, we do not take positions on basically on candidates, it's supporting or opposing candidates, nor do we take positions on things that the public directly votes on. So like a ballot measure. And so that's the bonds. And so, but the bond projects every year is part of our capital improvement project process, which is where councils, let the muni know basically what our priorities are in terms of park projects, road projects, drainage, those kind of things. And so there's a whole capital improvement program, and the bonds every year are just a part of that. And so what this is saying is essentially that we recommend or support these projects being included in the bond, and not necessarily saying, that we support them, but we support the opportunity for voters to weigh in on them. So just to clarify about that language. So I won't read all of the whereases, but just to summarize, the whereases here basically address each of the proposed projects. There are several that are already in the bond, either specific to our area or kind of adjacent to our area. So one of them is Spinard Road rehabilitation, and that's not a portion that's in our area, but it's between Benson and Minnesota. And of course, Spinard is adjacent to our council, and Spinard Road runs parallel to part of it. There's also projects for traffic improvements, such as traffic calming and safety and school zone safety. Those aren't specified in the bond as being in a particular neighborhood or a specific project, but it's funding for those programs. So for example, traffic calming. And then there's multiple park and recreation projects. One of them is the Fish Creek Trail to Ocean, moving along with that I believe it would be design and construction. There's also a Tony Knowles Coastal Trail to Ship Creek Trail connection, which again is not I believe the connection itself is not in our area, but most of the coastal trail runs through our council area, so it would connect to downtown and parts of the city. And then also playground development, which is again not a specific playground or park identified, but includes funding for those inclusive playgrounds, which we have several of in Turnigan. And so that's the first part, is to talk about projects that are already included in the capital budget. And then the second part for discussion is to also support inclusion of, and we actually have 4 projects here, support inclusion of those in the 2022 bond, capital improvement bond. So the first one is Turnigan Street upgrade, which is not currently in the 2022 bond, but is one of our priorities, and it's in our area. And then the next 3 are actually, 2 of them are in Spinard Community Council, and then 1 is in Midtown, but they are essentially road safety improvements for areas, essentially West Anchorage areas of town where where, you know, residents from Turnigan will traverse, whether it's going to Aquarian Charter or using Lois Drive. That area of Lois Drive and 32nd is near Aquarian Charter School. West 32nd and East 33rd Avenue upgrades, those are having to do with going through Midtown so that you don't have to be on Northern Lights or 36th if you're, especially if you're walking or biking. So it helps connect our area to those areas of Midtown. And then there's a proposed Fish Creek daylighting, just the feasibility study portion to see if that's a feasible project. And that's something that, you know, again, what happens upstream in Fish Creek flows downstream into Turnigan and out to the inlet. So that's essentially what's in the resolution. And then the whereases cover, you know, the projects that are reflected in our CIP ranking, the connection to Spenard Road and Fish Creek, but also to say, you know, several of these projects are not physically within the Turnigan Community Council boundaries. And so that's why we wanted to bring it for discussion, because there's you know, there's a balancing act between making sure that we're focused on our specific area and really, you know, representing priorities there, but also recognizing that we do not just live within our boundaries, but we travel to other places. You know, our kids go to school in other places. You know, there's a number of other impacts. And so whether it's citywide or West Anchorage wide or in Spenard, there are reasons why we could look more broadly. But with that, I will also say that you know, historically, it's most common for our community council to stay specific to our boundaries. And so that's a point for discussion. But we can also amend this resolution as well before we vote on it. So Dan, go ahead.
Being excuse me, let me unmute. Yeah, I'm not muted. Okay, so I've been a proponent of not going outside the boundaries and being a proponent of stuff like Spenard or West 32nd, 33rd, and Fish Creek daylighting feasibility studies. Since they're not in our boundaries, I'm hesitant that it dilutes our focus on what needs to be done within Turnigan Community Council. Now, you could say, yes, okay, argue the other way that we need to be good community citizens, but again, I think it dilutes our focus away from what's within our Turnigan Community Council boundaries. So that's my position. I would very caution that yeah, Lois Drive, West 32nd and East 33rd, and Fish Creek daylighting. I don't know whether we should those should be part of this or not. I don't think they should be.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Others comments?
This is Pat. I think that we should include them as a support to Spenard, as it does affect our community council, including daylighting Fish Creek. It'll affect it as we go along through the next few years, trying to get a trail along Fish Creek all the way to the coastal trail. And that's part of our goal, and part of that boundary is within our community council.
Thanks, Pat. Steve, you're off mute. Did you want to speak?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, no worries. Would anyone else like to speak? We're just in discussion on the resolution. Oh, go ahead, Kathy. So you come off mute.
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend to delete number 3, West 32nd and East 33rd Avenue upgrades, Arctic Boulevard to Old Seward, under the second, be it further resolved. I think that's really a stretch for us to be weighing in on that when there's multiple other community councils where they're much more directly related to what goes on there and what happens within their neighborhoods. So I'd like to see that removed from our list and the resolution.
This is Pat. I'll second that.
Excuse me, could you say again which item Kathy is moving to delete?
Yes, it's under the be it further resolved number 3. And it's West 32nd and East 33rd Avenue upgrades, Arctic Boulevard to Old Seward Highway.
Okay, thank you.
And Anna, for what it's worth, this is John. I see that as a friendly amendment and I do not object.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? So, and the amendment, I have it on the screen, it would be removing this one that I have highlighted in blue. Okay, I'm not seeing any discussion, so let's go ahead and vote just on the amendment. So all those in favor of amending the resolution, basically removing that 32nd and 33rd, raise your hand. Raise my hand. Okay, so it looks like I've got 11, 12, 13, 14.
Anna,
Oh, go ahead, Jackie.
I'm in favor as well.
Okay, so I think that's
Thank you.
I think that's 16. Okay, so 16 in favor, all those opposed. And I'll actually raise my hand, but I know I'm probably going to be the only one, so just for the sake of the vote count. Okay, so I think it's 16 in favor, 1 opposed. So the amendment passes. So then I'll go ahead, and I have this open as a Word document, so I'm going to go ahead and edit as we need to. So now we've just got those 3 other projects listed. Okay, and then is there any other discussion on the main resolution? Any other amendments people want to make? Okay, and I'm not seeing any anyone wanting to speak. So why don't we go ahead and vote if there's no objection? So all those in favor of passing this resolution.
Propose unanimous consent.
I think on a resolution, Dan, it might be better to do a vote count, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And just to say that if this does pass, we'll just call it resolution 01 if it does pass. Just for reference, because this is our first one of the year. So all those in favor of passing what might be Turnigan Community Council Resolution 01, please raise your hand or use the video to raise your hand. And Jackie, feel free to speak up.
And I am in favor.
Oops.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so we've got 16, 17, and then Jackie's 18. Okay, so that would be 18 in favor, and then if you could lower your hand, and then if anybody is opposed, please go ahead and raise your hand now or speak if I miss seeing you. I'm just going to capture the vote countdown here. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I believe there's no opposition votes. And then does anybody want to abstain? So certainly you don't have to, but if anybody would like to. Okay, not seeing anybody abstaining. Well, with that, then this resolution is considered passed. So thank you, everybody. And again, this is supporting inclusion on the 2022 bond of several projects that are actually already listed. So unless they get amended out, they would be included. And then the addition of these three additional projects for the bond. So thank you again. And then just for folks tracking the timeline, I know our assembly members mentioned it. There is a special meeting next Wednesday, the 19th, with public hearings on these and all the other whatever is being considered for the April ballot. And then January 25th, the next regular assembly meeting is the date that those decisions need to be made for the April ballot. So if you do have personal feelings about any of these projects or anything else that's proposed on the bond, please feel free to send your individual comments to the assembly as well. So then we'll get that sent off. So that's our action item. So then the next things are basically just reports that we'll do in the last several minutes of the meeting. So the first one under old business is West Northern Lights truck traffic update. And Jackie, I know you're on. So we don't have any action on this, and we really don't have any official updates. We really just wanted to give a few minutes to this and let folks know what's going on. So go ahead, Jackie.
And I want to thank you for forwarding that email to me from Jonathan. And as I'm looking at it, I would like to note that he's asking to get a hard copy of the weight restrictions. And that's the entire problem, is there are no weight restrictions on West Northern Lights because it's deemed a minor arterial. So that's technically those trucks can be on that street. Now, I live by just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I feel it's a serious safety issue. And I don't know where we need to go from here. But the truck that Jonathan saw, that starts at 4:30 in the morning. That semi truck activity starts at 4:30 in the morning, and I don't know where we go from here. I really don't.
Yes.
And I might add that it is not only semis; it is fuel haulers. It's avgas fuel haulers as well. Shoreside Petroleum and Crowley are running fuel trucks as well. And those trucks, I believe, are going to South Air Park, which really, I don't understand why they're using Northern Lights instead of International. But I have had no luck, and good on you for getting a hold of Carlisle, Jonathan, because I've talked to, I think it was either Carlisle or Linden, and I got a whole lot of nowhere because there are no weight restrictions.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. And so just for context, before I turn it over to other folks, so we've had this issue for well, definitely pre-COVID for a few years now of heavy, basically freight trucks or those large semi trucks running on Northern Lights Boulevard past Turnigan Elementary, past the houses, often speeding. And so that's been a real issue for residents. And so we had a committee at the council level and we're doing some work and, tried to talk to the airport, brought in our elected officials, talked to the trucking companies. So what Jackie's describing is a lot of the work that her committee did. And so what we're basically just bringing attention to is that this is still happening, and that, now that it's the new year and hopefully we can spend some more time on this and try to track down solutions. So Jonathan, maybe I can go to you just to give kind of brief update on that email you had shared, and then I'll go to Kathy and then Dan. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Unfortunately, my camera doesn't seem to be working, but you might want to share the email with whoever would like to see it. But basically, a Carlisle truck, large semi, was coming down the road. I was pulling out of my subdivision. I saw it. I followed it in the same direction I was going. I identified it as a Carlisle truck, the logo and the vehicle number. I contacted Carlisle, the next dispatcher, who acknowledged that truck should not have been the size. With that size of that truck, it was hauling some kind of compressed gas or fuel, whatever. He acknowledged. I had 3 calls actually from Carlisle, from supervisor types, telling me that, that this should not have happened, that he would be talking to that driver and that they would tell him, who purportedly didn't know that he should never go down West Northern Lights with a vehicle that size. So, which brings to the question, Kathy, that over the last couple of years, I understand there were signs, there were weight restrictions, the signs disappeared from West Northern Lights. So I think it would be really important for us to get a clarification on exactly what are the weight restrictions for West Northern Lights. it seems to me our assembly people could help with that and get some real answers. Is it illegal? Is it not? Is there a certain weight restriction? Whatever, but if we could get some type of clarification specifically, it makes total sense. And if there aren't, then we could go about lobbying to talk to the engineering department, DOT, whoever. But this seems to be a totally vague situation. There are weight restrictions, there are not weight restrictions. So, and then we have a very large trucking outfit that agrees that he shouldn't have been doing it. So we really need to get some clarification on this.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Kathy, do you want to speak to this too?
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. And I know that Lauren Lehman and Jackie and I'm not sure who else was on our committee that we worked pretty hard on for over a year. It's going on now 2.5 years, I think, since the weight limit restrictions for through truck traffic on West Northern Lights. There was signage on West Northern Lights from Lois to, I believe, beyond Lakewood Drive, maybe through Postmark Drive, that for through truck traffic, it was not allowed. And in doing some research on this, going over multiple years, talking with former traffic engineer at the Muni, Stephanie Mormillo, they could not find any history, any kind of documentation, any kind of files showing the history of when those signs were put up, how many were put up, where they were put up, and by whom and why. Because per code, because it's designated a minor arterial, there are no truck weight limit restrictions. But those signs went up several years ago because somebody somewhere, and I'm sure the council was involved with it at that time, identified that it's not a good idea for airport related heavy truck traffic going through a strictly residential area and past Turnigan Elementary School.
Well, I remember seeing those signs. I saw them when I first moved to this.
They used to be there. They were taken down about 2.5 years ago, mysteriously. Inquired with the municipality. They said, we did not take those signs down. Inquired with the state DOT. They said, we did not take those signs down. We didn't put them up. We didn't take them down. We don't know what the situation is and how they came about. But clearly for those like Jackie and others who live on West Northern Lights, it was like a light switch went on. We didn't have much airport related truck traffic going through West Northern Lights when those signs were up. And once those signs went down, mysteriously, all of a sudden, what Jonathan and Jackie are describing, just the floodgates opened. And so there are perhaps some avenues per code that we can look at, and it's just been a matter of not following through as well as we should have over the last couple of years. The traffic engineer has the authority, the municipal traffic engineer has the authority to put up truck weight limit signs, put restrictions on minor arterials under certain criteria. And one of them is if it starts degrading the condition of the road. And another is if there's a major safety hazard. And I think we've gotten enough video footage and photos and document, people saying what they've seen, that we could certainly make an appeal to our assembly people and the administration to push for the traffic engineer to put those weight restriction signage rules back up. And I think that we could, push for some kind of evaluation from an engineering perspective to look at the road condition and how it's deteriorated over time, because it was not built for those kinds of heavy vehicles traveling on them. So there is potentially a way through this. We just have to continue working on it and pursuing it. And Jonathan, I'm glad your email kind of has lit the fire again with regard to, I think what's needed is a meeting that has administrative representation, our assembly representation, the airport representation, neighborhood representation, and Alaska Trucking Association representation, and any of the players that have been using that road, like Carlisle, whether they're supposed to or not is just almost irrelevant at this point. They are using it. So I'll leave it at that. And I think we should make it a priority for this year. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And we are short on time, so I want to make sure that we can end it at 9. So Pat, I don't know if you have a very brief comment or question.
Just very quickly, I did see there were signs in the past, and some of them, it had to do with the fact that we had, a lot of it was before the road was upgraded, but there were still signs beyond Kathy's Road that had weight restrictions on it. And I thought they were state signs. But anyway,
Yeah.
yes, we have had weight restrictions on that road for years, and then they all of a sudden disappeared.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. So we've done a lot of the research. We think that we've got, a good case to make, and we've got like Kathy said, there's a lot of players involved, but we think there's options we can pursue. And now we do have a new traffic engineer and a new administration. So we're going to pursue that. So again, we don't have action for the council right now, but we're looking at following up on that, especially now that some other priorities have kind of died down. So in the last 4 minutes, I just want to really briefly cover committee reports. And so the first is the Land Use Committee. And I'm just going to actually really briefly summarize. So we're tracking multiple things. We did have a meeting on, I believe it was December 9th. We heard from the planning department. We sent off not a position. We made it very clear that it wasn't the council's position on this item, but we sent off questions to the planning department about the first one, which is Title 21 parking and site access requirement code amendments. And so that's something that's going to come up later this year. So it wasn't an urgent item, but the committee will continue to meet about that, especially when there's a new draft. We're also tracking the West Anchorage Snow Disposal Facility Design Study Report, and we don't have an update on that because they have not published their new timeline. They did get a portion of it approved in November, so if you have questions, you can reach out and we can provide details. And then the next one is the AMATS Long Range Transportation Plan, so that again, that they're moving through an approval process. So there was goals and objectives out, and then again, there's going to be a lot more detail and other steps in the process there. And so for the next thing, I wonder first if I could have a motion to extend the meeting just to 9:05, so we have a little bit of time.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any objection? Okay, and I will hold us to 9:05, but I also want to give time for an update on the Spinard Beach Park Committee. So I wonder if Sarah or Kathy would like to speak to that. Just giving a brief update on the report.
Sarah, go ahead.
Sure, I'll be really quick. We submitted the final report.
Oh, Sarah, you're having a lot of echoing. I don't know if maybe it's picking up sound or something.
Well, why don't I jump in and maybe Sarah can get her audio. Sarah did submit a final report for our Anchorage Park Foundation Challenge Grant for Spinard Beach Park, so that we finalized that as a step because it was extended into 2021. And the Parks Department has ordered some of the amenities that will be installed in the park, hopefully later on, or spring, summer timeframe, picnic benches and picnic benches and picnic tables. Picnic tables and benches, I'll get it right. So anyway, thank you, Sarah, for handling that on behalf of the committee, which is shared by Spinard and Turnagain councils. And now we'll just wait to see when the snow melts, we get out there and do a site evaluation of where exactly we want everything positioned. And I know Sarah and I and others will stay on top of that. So Sarah, if you want to jump in.
I'll try. Thank you, Kathy. Sorry, you buy a new laptop and it still doesn't work. So thank you. And yeah, we're excited. Hopefully we'll pick a date and everyone can get their work gloves out and we can all dig in the dirt together. It'll be fun. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And thanks again to Sarah and Kathy and folks in Spinard. And I had only a very tiny part, so I'm glad that this all is moving forward. And also just to remind folks, so we started with this challenge grant, but before we even talked about, what amenities to get, we thought about, well, what would our like dream vision for the park be? So not a master plan, not anything big like that, but we also identified what we were calling phase 2 improvements. So thinking about, the money would only cover so many things for phase 1, but we could dream big, think about, a future bond or work with the Parks Foundation, get more donations. So there's a lot of other things that could be done in that park, which is in our boundaries, even though it's called Spinard Beach Park, it's right on the Turnigan boundary. So that's something that we're certainly interested in, obviously, as well as other parks. And then just to say too, the Park Foundation, I don't know if the application period is open yet, but they do have a challenge grant annual application where, and it doesn't have to be through a community council. It can really just be members, neighbors, whoever wants to do a challenge grant for relatively small scale, but things like this, like buying benches or buying, some amenities for that park. So if you have ideas or folks who want to make improvements to parks, that's going to be coming up really soon. So I think that is our agenda, and I appreciate you guys staying for a few minutes. So I just want to see if there's any like urgent announcements or things that we forgot to say, and otherwise I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move. This is Pat.
I second.
Okay, is there any objection to adjourning? Not seeing anyone wanting to stay on for another hour. So we'll call the meeting done for tonight. And thank you again, everybody, for coming. And we'll see you on February 3rd, our normal meeting time.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna, for stepping up.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I was a few minutes late getting.
Oh, that's okay.
to the
No,
meeting.
thank you for coming.
Yep.
All right, take
You're
care,
welcome.
everyone.
Okay. Good
And
night.
Anna,
Oh, go ahead,
Anna,
Jackie.
this is
Yep.
Jackie. I do apologize. That was totally my bad. I did not notice that the meeting ID had changed, and that's why I was so late.
Oh, that's okay. And yeah, we had all kinds of issues because we're not meeting with our normal meeting space. So
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
so that
get it
was
worked out
totally
next
my fault.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, totally my fault. Did it
Hey.
bugger up regarding the Treasury report?
Oh, no,
I made the same mistake, so don't feel bad.
Oh, okay. Thank